The morning at Luxury Motors was running like clockwork until the door slammed open. A figure walked in, dressed casually in a hoodie and sneakers. He didn't fit the image of a luxury car buyer, not even close. Elena, the dealership manager, didn't hesitate. She immediately sized him up, dismissing him with a quick glance. Little did she know, the man she was about to kick out was Snoop Dogg, the new owner of the dealership. In that moment, Elena's arrogance would cost her more than just a sale. The tension in the room intensifies as Snoop's calm confidence clashes with Elena's growing anxiety. She's used to being the one in control, but the more Snoop remains composed and unbothered, the more uncomfortable Elena feels. Her authority begins to feel shaky as she tries to maintain composure, but it's clear that Snoop's presence is shaking her confidence. A key moment is when Snoop steps away to make a phone call, leaving Elena and the staff in suspense. The mysterious phone call adds to the mystery of who Snoop might be, as Elena wonders whether he's calling a manager, making a deal, or doing something else entirely. The uncertainty builds up the tension, leaving Elena feeling more out of control with each passing minute. When Snoop finishes the call and nonchalantly tells Elena they'll be here shortly, her confusion grows. She has no idea who he's referring to, but there's a shift in the air. The calmness in Snoop's voice and the assurance he carries seem to challenge her authority directly. This tension reaches its peak when Vincent, the regional director of the dealership, enters the showroom. His polished appearance and warm smile only add to the already high-pressure environment. When Vincent greets Snoop as Mr. Dogg, Elena's disbelief deepens, and she starts to realize that this is no ordinary customer. Her mind races, and she struggles to process the fact that Snoop is the new owner of the dealership. As Elena stands there, stunned and speechless, Snoop calmly asks her if she would have treated him differently if he had walked in wearing a suit. Elena's silence becomes her admission of guilt. She hadn't treated him equally because of his appearance, and that realization stings. Snoop's simple yet powerful question challenges the assumptions she had made about him, leaving her with no choice but to acknowledge her bias. All the while, the staff in the showroom watch in silence, sensing the growing tension. The weight of the moment hangs in the air as everyone waits for Elena's reaction. Around them, the atmosphere had shifted. The air, once filled with tension from a simple misunderstanding, now felt heavier, as if something important was about to happen. Elena's expression had turned from irritation to confusion, and even the employees had paused to watch how the strange interaction would unfold. Snoop didn't say much. He simply stepped aside, spoke quietly into his phone, and ended the call with a calm, "They'll be here shortly." Elena blinked. "Who did you just call?" she asked, her voice quieter now. Snoop didn't respond. Instead, he glanced around the showroom, making brief eye contact with the staff who were now pretending to look busy, but were clearly listening. His silence said more than words. Then the main doors opened. A sharply dressed man in a navy blue suit walked in. His presence was commanding, his pace confident. His polished shoes tapped cleanly on the tiled floor as he headed straight towards Snoop with a wide, respectful smile. "Mr. Dogg," he said warmly, extending his hand. "So good to see you." Snoop returned the handshake with a knowing grin. "Thanks for coming, Vince. Appreciate it." Elena's eyes widened. Vince? That was Vincent, the regional director, her boss's boss. She looked between them, her clipboard slipping slightly in her grip. "Wait, Mr. Dogg?" she stammered. Vincent's friendly tone turned professional. "Elena," he said, "I see you've already met Mr. Dogg. I didn't realize you didn't realize he's the new owner of this dealership." Vincent finished, his words flat but pointed. Silence fell. Everyone had heard. Elena's face drained of color. Snoop's voice was calm, but there was weight behind every syllable. "It's all right, Vincent. I think Elena and I just got off on the wrong foot." Elena opened her mouth again, but nothing came out. "You didn't know someone like me could own a place like this?" Snoop asked softly. Her silence was answer enough. "Vincent," Snoop said, not taking his eyes off her, "let's get everyone in the conference room. We need to have a conversation about how things are run around here." The employees shuffled into the sleek, modern conference room. The glass walls that once seemed impressive now felt like they exposed every nervous glance and whisper. The room was silent, except for the quiet hum of the air conditioning. Elena sat near the back, her clipboard now resting limply in her lap, her earlier confidence replaced by an almost frozen stillness. Snoop stood at the head of the long table. He wasn't flashy. He didn't need to be. His calm, collected presence alone commanded attention. Vincent leaned against the wall near the door, arms crossed, saying nothing but observing everything. "Thank you all for joining me on short notice," Snoop began, his voice steady but clear. "For those who don't know, my name is Snoop Dogg, and I'm the new owner of Luxury Motors." A murmur ran through the room. Some faces showed surprise, others a hint of embarrassment. Elena's eyes stayed stayed glued to the table in front of her. I came here today dressed casually, on purpose, Snoop continued. I wanted to see how people are treated when they don't walk in here in a suit with a name badge or flashing wealth. He paused. The silence made the weight of his words settle harder. What I experienced today was disappointing. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. I was judged not by my knowledge, not by what I could bring to this business, but by how I looked. And I'm not here to call anyone out. This is bigger than that. This is about culture, and the culture here needs to change. There was a slight shuffle as Elena adjusted her seat, visibly uneasy. One of the younger employees, Chris, raised his hand. Mr. Dogg, he said carefully, I think most of us try to treat customers fairly, but sometimes it's hard not to make assumptions. Snoop nodded. I get it. We all carry biases, whether we know it or not. But trying isn't enough. If we want to lead in this business, if we want luxury motors to stand for something more, then we have to do better, on purpose. He stepped away from the table, walking slowly as he looked each employee in the eye. We're not just selling cars. We're building trust, creating an experience, and every person who walks through that door deserves to feel like they belong here. His gaze landed on Elena. Elena, he said, his tone softening just a bit. I want to give you a chance to speak. Her voice trembled. I made a mistake, she said quietly. I misjudged you, and I'm truly sorry. Snoop looked at her for a moment, then gave a small nod. Thank you for saying that. It's a start, but real change starts with accountability, and that goes for all of us. He turned back to the group. Moving forward, we'll be starting new training on customer experience, on unconscious bias, and on how we carry the name Luxury Motors. We're setting a new standard. No one spoke, but the energy in the room had shifted. Heads nodded. Eyes that had avoided contact now looked forward. Snoop gave a final nod. Good. Let's be the kind of place people talk about, not just because of what we sell, but because of how we make them feel. The meeting was over, but for many in that room, something much bigger had just begun. The air felt different in the showroom the next day. Not louder, not busier, but more alert, like something unspoken had shifted overnight. The staff, though still performing the same duties, moved with a quieter purpose. Conversations were more thoughtful. Glances carried more awareness. Snoop's words had clearly lingered. Elena arrived early, something she rarely did. She stood near the front desk, observing the space with a new set of eyes. There was no clipboard in her hand today, no practiced smile, just a manager who now understood the weight of her position. When a young man walked in, hoodie, paint-splattered jeans, headphones around his neck, Elena didn't hesitate. She stepped forward, greeting him with genuine warmth. Good morning. Welcome to Luxury Motors. What brings you in today? The man looked a little surprised, but smiled. Just checking out the models. Might be time to upgrade my ride. Of course, she replied, waving a nearby salesperson over. Let me introduce you to Mia. She's one of our best, and she'll make sure you're taken care of. She stepped back, but not before offering the customer one more sincere nod. No judgment, no assumption, just respect. From the upper-level office, Snoop observed quietly. He wasn't watching to catch anyone slipping. He was watching for signs of growth, and right now, Elena's actions said more than any apology ever could. Later that afternoon, he called her into his office. She entered cautiously, unsure of what to expect. You handled that customer well today, Snoop said, motioning for her to sit. Thank you, she replied. I'm trying to unlearn some things. That's all I wanted. He nodded. Growth, not perfection. What matters is effort. She hesitated before speaking again. I want to be better. I want to help set the new tone here, if you'll let me. Snoop leaned back in his chair, considering her words. You've got the experience. Now it's time to lead with intention, not just policies, but example. Elena nodded. I understand. I believe you do, he said with a faint smile. Keep it up. This place needs people who care enough to change. As she left the office, there was no dramatic music, no standing ovation, just a quiet sense of something rebuilding, a tone reset, a culture beginning to evolve, not from a memo, but from actions, small, consistent ones, and that was exactly what Snoop had hoped for. The following week, the entire staff gathered in the sleek conference room again, but this time, the mood wasn't tense. It was curious, hopeful even. The air held anticipation, not fear. Snoop stood at the head of the long glass table. No suit, no entourage, just him, calm, composed, and in control. Vincent stood to the side once again, his arms crossed, a proud look in his eyes. Thank you all for being here, Snoop began, scanning the room. Today's meeting isn't about what went wrong last time. It's about how we move forward. No one fidgeted, no phones buzzed, every eye stayed locked on him. I've spent the last few days getting to know how things run around here, he continued, talking to customers, watching how people interact, listening to you, and I've got to say, we've got good people in this building, but good can't just be good enough. He stepped around the table slowly, his voice smooth but serious. This dealership's name, Luxury Motors, it shouldn't just represent the cars we sell. It should reflect the experience we offer. And luxury, he paused, starts with respect. A murmur of agreement rippled through the room. So here's what's changing, Snoop said. We're launching new training programs, not just on sales, but on how we treat every single person who walks through those doors, whether they're buying a top-tier SUV or just asking questions. He looked at each face as he spoke. There will be accountability. That means no more snap judgments, no more profiling. Every person deserves a fair shot, and every team member here deserves a chance to grow, but you gotta want it. Chris, the younger sales associate who had spoken up during the last meeting, raised his hand again. Mr. Dogg, does that mean people who messed up before are getting second chances? Snoop smiled faintly. Depends on what they do with that second chance. Eyes shifted toward Elena, who sat calmly this time, shoulders squared. She didn't flinch. She nodded, more to herself than anyone else. This is our culture reset, Snoop finished. And it's not just words. It's going to be reflected in everything we do. I'm not here to babysit. I'm here to build something. He let the silence sit for a moment, powerful and unforced. If you're down with that, he said finally, then let's get to work. Heads nodded around the room. A few clapped. Not loud, not dramatic, but sincere. The shift wasn't just starting, it was already in motion. A few days after the meeting, subtle but meaningful changes began unfolding at the dealership. The first came from Elena. She arrived early, long before the rest of the staff, reviewing files, organizing the front desk, and greeting the janitorial staff by name, a gesture she'd never made before. Her posture was different too, less rigid, more grounded, as if she understood that respect had to be earned, not demanded. Later that morning, a customer walked in. Young guy, maybe in his 20s, hoodie, sketch pad tucked under his arm, paint on his fingers, the type Elena might have ignored or passed off to someone else before. But this time, she smiled and approached him warmly. Welcome to Luxury Motors. Is there something I can help you find? He hesitated. Yeah, just looking for something reliable. My car broke down and I need something soon. But I'm an artist. My budget's tight. Elena didn't flinch. She didn't give the usual upsell pitch. She didn't scan him from head to toe, judging whether he was worth her time. She listened, asked thoughtful questions, even offered to show him a few gently used luxury models that would fit his budget. Snoop, watching from a distance near the glass office, caught the whole interaction. He said nothing, didn't interfere, but a slight nod and a half smile made it clear this is what change looked like. As the day went on, other staff members took notice of her shift. She helped the receptionist organize paperwork, thanked the service team for handling a messy job, and even laughed with Chris over lunch. It was like the wall she'd built around herself had started to crumble. Later that evening, Vincent pulled Snoop aside. You seeing this? He asked, nodding in Elena's direction. Yeah, Snoop replied. It's not just about saying sorry. It's what you do after that matters. And she was doing the work, slowly, steadily, sincerely. By the end of the week, customer feedback reflected the shift. More smiles, more compliments. One review even mentioned Elena by name, the manager who actually listened. For Snoop, it wasn't about turning someone into something they weren't. It was about revealing what they could be, with the right guidance, the right push, and a reason to believe. The culture shift he'd hoped for had started. One choice, one conversation, one person at a time. The ripple effect of Elena's transformation didn't stop with her. Within days, a noticeable shift began to take hold across the dealership. What started as quiet observations soon grew into active participation. The staff, many of whom had kept their heads down during the initial confrontation, now found themselves re-evaluating how they treated both customers and one another. Chris, the young associate who had nervously spoken up during the meeting, started taking more initiative. He made it a point to greet every customer, no matter how they were dressed or what car they drove in with. One afternoon, he spent over an hour helping an older woman who spoke broken English find a car for her grandson. He didn't rush her. He listened, explained patiently, and made sure she felt comfortable every step of the way. Even the front desk receptionist, Maya, began keeping water bottles and snacks behind the counter for waiting customers. She'd seen Snoop do it quietly on his own, offering coffee to a tired father waiting on paperwork the week before. It's the little things, she told another colleague. People remember how you make them feel. Snoop continued to make unannounced visits, not to catch people off guard, but to stay connected. Sometimes he'd walk the lot with the service crew. Other times he'd chat with the cleaning staff during closing hours. He never made it about hierarchy, just presence, respect, humility. Vincent, the regional director, helped implement bi-weekly training sessions focused not just on sales, but on empathy, communication, and unconscious bias. The sessions weren't boring corporate lectures. They were real, honest discussions where everyone got a chance to speak. There was one day during training when an older mechanic named Daryl shared that he used to feel invisible, that no one really saw him unless something broke. After that, several team members began including him in more conversations, even inviting him to weigh in on vehicle choices customers were making. His pride in his work came through clearer than ever. Snoop noticed the energy shift too. The dealership felt less transactional and more human. And sales, they didn't dip, they rose. Because customers could feel the difference. The warmth, warmth, the sincerity. Word spread. People came not just to buy cars, but to experience something better. It wasn't perfect yet. Change never is. But the dealership that once judged Snoop by his hoodie was learning to lead with respect, to slow down, to see the person before the purchase. And Snoop? He didn't need to micromanage. He just needed to be the mirror that showed everyone who they could be at their best. Luxury Motors wasn't just shifting gears, it was becoming something greater. As the weeks rolled on, the changes at Luxury Motors weren't just visible, they were felt. From the way customers were welcomed to how employees collaborated, there was a new energy. An energy rooted in respect, humility, and growth. And now, it was time to make that change official. Snoop scheduled a final team meeting, not because something was wrong, but because something was finally going right. This time, the conference room didn't feel tense, it felt alive. Staff came in with curious expressions, a few even smiling. Elena took her usual seat, but now her posture was relaxed, confident, but in a different way, not defensive, genuine. Snoop stood at the head of the table, hands resting lightly in his pockets. No notes, no speech, just him. "I wanted to say thank you," he began, his voice calm, but with that unmistakable presence. "Thank you for showing up, not just to work, but for each other." He paused, letting the words land. "When I first walked in here, I wasn't sure what I'd find. What I found was a place with potential, a team with talent, but also habits that needed breaking. I didn't come in to embarrass anybody. I came in to build something better." He looked around the room, making eye contact with several staff members. "You've stepped up. I've seen it. So have the customers. And that's what matters." There was a soft murmur of agreement around the room. Snoop took a step forward. "Moving forward, the standard is clear. We treat every person with dignity. No assumptions, no judgment. Whether it's someone buying their third Benz or someone walking in just to look, we show up the same." He turned briefly toward Elena. "That goes for leadership too. We lead by example, not by title." Elena nodded, a small smile on her face. She understood, and more importantly, she believed in it now. Snoop stepped back, his voice lowering just a little. "This ain't just a dealership anymore. It's a message that excellence starts with how we treat people." With that, the room erupted in light applause, not forced, not polite, real. Because in that moment, everyone knew something had changed, and it wasn't just the name on the deed. It was the heart of Luxury Motors. A few days later, the atmosphere at Luxury Motors had fully transformed. The sales floor felt lighter, more welcoming. Customers who once might have been overlooked were now being greeted with genuine smiles and open conversations. Elena stood by the entrance, chatting warmly with an elderly couple browsing for their first luxury car. Her voice was kind, her posture relaxed. This wasn't performance, it was growth in action. Snoop watched from a distance, arms folded, a soft nod of approval. He wasn't wearing a suit, just his usual hoodie and kicks, but now no one questioned it. No one gave him a second look like he didn't belong. Respect had taken root. Chris, the young sales associate who had once been hesitant to speak, now stepped up naturally when another new face walked in. The culture was shifting, slowly, genuinely. Later that evening, as Snoop stepped into his office, an understated space with clean lines and music humming quietly in the background, he sat down with a quiet smile. This wasn't just a business turnaround. It was a reminder. Real leadership isn't about commanding a room. It's about changing it for the better. And at Luxury Motors, change had truly begun. As the sun dipped below the city skyline, casting long shadows across the gleaming hoods in the showroom, one thing was certain: Luxury Motors would never be the same. What started as a simple visit turned into a powerful lesson for everyone involved. Judgments had been made, assumptions shattered, and growth sparked in the most unexpected of ways. Snoop didn't need to prove his worth. He just needed to reveal a deeper truth: that respect, humility, and fairness must drive more than just business. They must drive people. This wasn't just about one dealership. It was about every space where people are judged before they're heard, where appearances still outweigh authenticity. Snoop had made his mark, not through anger, but through example. And that, above all, was what made the biggest impact. Every day brings new challenges, and we're all learning along the way. If this story inspired you, join us on this journey. Share your thoughts with us, and don't forget to follow our channel for more stories like this.